Hotel on the Corner of Bitter and Sweet. Chapter 2. Marty Lee, 1986. Henry left the crowd at the Panama Hotel behind and walked to his home up on Beacon Hill. It was not so far back as to have a scenic overlook of Rainier Avenue, but in the more sensible neighborhoods just up the street from Chinatown. A modest, three-bedroom home with a basement, still unfinished after all these years. He'd meant to finish it when his son, Marty, went away to college, but Ethel's condition had worsened, and what money they'd saved for a rainy day was spent in a downpour of medical bills. A torrent that lasted nearly a decade. Medicaid kicked in near the end, just in time, and would even have covered a nursing home. But Henry stuck to his vow to care for his wife in sickness and in health. Besides, who'd want to spend their last days in some state-owned facility that looked like a prison where everyone lived on death row? Before Henry could answer his own question, Marty knocked twice on the front door and walked right in, greeting him with a casual, "How you doing, Pops?" and immediately headed for the kitchen. "I'll be right out. Don't get up. I just gotta get a drink. I hoofed it all the way from Capitol Hill. Exercise, you know. You should think about a little workout yourself. I think you've put on some weight since Mom died." Henry looked at his waistline and mashed the mute button on the TV. He'd been watching the news for word on today's discovery at the Panama Hotel, but heard nothing. Must have been a busy news day. In his lap was a stack of old photo albums and a few school annuals, stained and mildew-smelling from the damp Seattle air that cooled the concrete slab of Henry's perpetually unfinished basement. He and Marty hadn't talked much since the funeral. Marty stayed busy as a chemistry major at Seattle University, which was good. It seemed to keep him out of trouble. But college also seemed to keep him out of Henry's life, which had been acceptable while Ethel was alive, but now it made the hole in Henry's life that much larger. Like standing on one side of a canyon, yelling, and always waiting for the echo that never came. When Marty did come by, it seemed like the visits were only to do his laundry, wax his car, or hit his father up for money, which Henry always gave, without even showing annoyance. Helping Marty pay for college had been a second battlefront for Henry, if caring for Ethel had been the first. Despite a small grant, Marty still needed student loans to pay for his education, but Henry had opted for an early retirement package from his job at Boeing so he could care for Ethel full-time. On paper, he had a lot of money to his name. He looked downright affluent. To the lenders, Marty was from a family with a decent bank account, but the lenders weren't paying the medical bills. By the time his mother passed, there had been just enough to cover a decent burial, an expense Marty felt was unnecessary. Henry also didn't bother to tell Marty about the second mortgage, the one he'd taken out to get him through college when the student loans ran dry. Why make him worry? Why put that pressure on him? School is hard enough as is. Like any good father, he wanted the best for his son, even if they didn't talk all that much. Henry kept staring at the photo albums, faded reminders of his own school days, looking for someone he'd never find. I try not to live in the past, he thought, but who knows? Sometimes the past lives in me. He took his eyes off the photos to watch Marty amble in with a tall glass of iced green tea. He sat on the couch for a moment, then moved to his mother's cracked faux leather recliner directly across from Henry, who felt better seeing someone anyone in Ethel's space. Is that the last of the iced tea? Henry asked. Yep, was Marty's reply, and I saved the last glass for you, Pops. He set it on a jade coaster next to Henry. It dawned on Henry how old and cynical he'd allowed himself to become in the months since the funeral. It wasn't Marty. It was him. He needed to get out more. Today had been a good start. Even so, a mumbled thank you was all Henry could muster. Sorry I haven't come by lately. Finals were killing me. Plus, I didn't want to waste all that hard-earned money you and Ma paid to put my butt in college in the first place. Now, Henry felt his face flush with guilt as the noisy old furnace shut off, letting the house cool. In fact, I brought you a little token of my appreciation. Marty handed him a small Lycée envelope, bright red, with shiny gold foil embossed on the front. Henry took the gift with both hands. A lucky money envelope? You paying me back? His son smiled and raised his eyebrows. In a way. It didn't matter what it was. Henry had been humbled by his son's thoughtfulness. He touched the gold seal. On it was the Cantonese character for prosperity. Inside was a folded slip of paper, Marty's report card. He'd earned a perfect 4.0. I'm graduating summa cum laude. That means with highest honor. There was silence. Nothing but the electric hum of the muted television. You all right, Pops? Henry wiped at the corner of his eye with the back of his calloused hand. Maybe next time I borrow money from you, he replied. If you ever want to finish college, I'll be happy to front you the cash, Pops. I'll put you on scholarship. Scholarship. The word had a special meaning for Henry, not just because he never finished college, though that might have been part of it. In 1949, he dropped out of the University of Washington to become an apprentice draftsman. The program offered through Boeing was a great opportunity, but deep down, Henry knew the real reason he dropped out, the painful reason. He had a hard time fitting in, a sense of isolation left over from all those years. Not quite peer pressure, more like peer rejection. As he looked down at his 6th grade yearbook, he remembered everything he had hated and loved about school. Strange faces played in his thoughts over and over like an old newsreel. The unkind glances of schoolyard enemies, a harsh contrast to the smiling innocence of their yearbook pictures. In the column next to the giant class photo was a list of names, those not pictured. Henry found his name on the list. He was indeed absent from the rows and rows of smiling children. But he'd been there that day, all day.